And welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and we are live for the final strategy stream of the season. The final strategy stream. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Gameweek 37 is not even over yet, by the way, guys. So we are going a little bit early on some of our bits and bobs, but we need to think about Gameweek 38, the final opportunity to get some points on the board. Quite crazy, right? As for Game Week 37 so far, I'm matching Game Week 37 with 37 points. Not very good. It's been a bit of a meh game week. Not a very interesting one so far. A little bit of a disappointing one for me. Maybe a few of you guys are doing a little bit better, particularly those of you who didn't bench both Trippier and Botman. I believe Trippier is going to be on 9 points and Botman on 7 points when those bonus points come in as well, which is, you know, a little bit disappointed. But hey, at least Wilson beat Isaac, who scored 1 point. So, you know, small victories? No, not really. Bit of an L there, guys. Can't believe it. Newcastle finally deciding to keep a clean sheet the week I finally decide to bench those Newcastle defenders. But there you go. That's FPL. That is life. But Newcastle in the Champions League. So congratulations to Newcastle fans. I'm sure you're very, very excited to be playing at Champions League football next season. But for now, I think we need to talk about Game Week 38 because I think Game Week 38 is going to be a really weird and interesting and wonderful and crazy and strange one. I feel like it's going to be an odd one, a really odd one. And the reason is because so many of the players that we have in our team, so let me go on my pick team page, for example. Yeah, it seems like a lot of these players that we have don't really have too much to play for. So assuming Manchester United get 1 point against Chelsea, which you think they probably would get at least 1 point against Chelsea, then they're going to have nothing to play for. Newcastle, they've got the Champions League now. That's locked in. They've got nothing to play for. That's sorted. We've got the Brighton boys. They've got 6th place on lock now. Pretty much can't go down. Unless they lose like 15-0 to Aston Villa, they're not going to go anywhere up or down. They've still, of course, got another game to play, so they could even secure it in Game Week 37. So they've got nothing to play for. We've got Manchester City, already won the league. They've got nothing to play for. Liverpool, after Wednesday Manchester United play? I think it's Thursday. Thursday Manchester United play, right? I think I've got that right. After that, Liverpool might not have anything to play for, assuming Manchester United get the results. So all of the players that we seem to have in our FPL team, no one's got anything to play for anymore. Like, typically, it's quite wild. In fact, if you look through the fixtures, I mean, of course, we've got Arsenal as well. They've got nothing to play for. They're stuck in second. Martinelli's injured anyway. But, you know, there's another example of another team with nothing to play for. You know, you can look through this list of fixtures for Game Week 38, and there's really not much going on here. Arsenal Wolves, there's nothing in that. Aston Villa Brighton, probably nothing in that. Brentford Man City, nothing can happen there. Chelsea Newcastle, that's a nothing game. Crystal Palace versus Forest, of course. Crystal Palace can't really go up or down too much. Nottingham Forest, they've sealed their place outside of the relegation zone. They're guaranteed to stay up in the Premier League now. Everton versus Bournemouth, kind of interesting, but no one really has any of their players, do they? So Everton Bournemouth, I guess, is an interesting fixture. Leeds versus Spurs, you probably put in a similar boat to that. Leicester got a chance of staying up as well. So these 3 fixtures, Man United, of course, we've spoken about already. Southampton versus Liverpool. Southampton already relegated. There's only 3 fixtures that actually matter. 3 fixtures that can have any impact on the remainder of the Premier League season. And all 3 of them are the relegation fight between Everton, Leeds and Leicester. One of those 3 teams that playing at home this game week are going to get relegated from the Premier League. 2 of them are going to get relegated. One of them is going to stay up. We don't know which one it's going to be. It's anyone's guess at the moment. It's a bizarre one. It's a bizarre one. So therefore, what do we do? Where do we go? What kind of players do we go for? Is these fixtures the ones to target? Because, interestingly, Everton against Bournemouth, Bournemouth nothing to play for. Leicester versus West Ham, West Ham nothing to play for. Those 2 games in particular, are they the ones to target? We've got Leeds and Spurs. I guess that's kind of interesting in a way. Spurs, can they get their European spot do they even want their European spot? I know, yeah, someone said in the chat, QZZ says Aston Villa still fighting with Spurs. I think it will mean more to Aston Villa than it does to Spurs. I don't know if Spurs even, like Spurs fans, I've spoken to a lot of Spurs fans, they don't even want to get it. They don't even want to get Europa Conference League. They just want a season off European football. They really do. So I guess, you know, it kind of matters. I don't know. Brentford, someone says Brentford matters as well. Let's have a look at the league table, Premier League table. Hopefully that's updated with the results today. Yeah, Brentford can't. Oh, okay, they can technically get up to 7th. So can Spurs. So maybe Aston Villa, Spurs, and Brentford. Is there something in that one? Competing for 7th place? I mean, it's not the greatest honour in the world, but maybe they're going to want that. I don't know. It's difficult. Maybe Brentford is one worth talking about a little bit. But the point is, Izzy in the chat says, Spurs fan here, I don't want the Conference League at all. Yeah, no Spurs fans do. No Spurs fans do. But yeah, we're kind of in a situation where there's really not much to play for in the Premier League, which is a bit of a shame, really. We like to have a big dramatic final day of the season. The big drama will be at the bottom of the table, Everton, Leicester and Leeds. So therefore, what players do we want? And I think this is what we've got to think and kind of figure out. What do we want? Well, Everton, Leicester and Leeds players probably on the radar. We've got, all right, we can maybe say Brentford, they play against Man City. Man City, by the way, I said this in my video earlier. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the quotes from Pep Guardiola, but he literally just basically said, we don't care about the final 2 games of the Premier League season. We just want to get these 2 games in the Premier League season out of the way so we can play the FA Cup final, so we can play the Champions League final. So although, you know, it's been a kind of a consistent thing with Pep Guardiola that he likes to keep rhythm and momentum with his Manchester City team, at the same time, could we see some heavy rotation in the final 2 games? Yeah, quite possibly. Where's the rotation going to be? Is it going to be on Wednesday, against Brighton, or is it going to be at the weekend on Sunday? I'm not exactly sure. Do you think Ederson is going to get a game before the end of the season? You would hope that he would if you were expecting Ederson to play the FA Cup final. Maybe he doesn't even play that, or Tager maybe plays the FA Cup final. If Ederson is going to play the Champions League final and not the FA Cup final, then Ederson's got to get a game in somewhere here, because otherwise he's just going to, not be playing for like a month until the Champions League final, because we've still got, almost 3 weeks until the Champions League final. Ederson didn't play at the weekend, so that kind of takes us closer to a month, really. So Ederson, maybe he gets a game in somewhere, but is that a guarantee? Not particularly. Erling Haaland might be protected. Is Alvarez going to play? In terms of Brentford, like I say, they play Man City. Is that going to be a good fixture because City have nothing to play for and they're on the beach? Or is it actually going to be a bad fixture because they're playing against Manchester City and Manchester City are amazing? Yeah, maybe a bit of that. Aston Villa, do we really want to go back in on them against Brighton? Brighton are a tired team. They've got some tired legs out there at the moment, haven't they? Having played so many fixtures. So maybe that's an interesting one. Do we want to go back in on Aston Villa? Are Brighton really worth, considering? I don't know. So what people are saying, it's a distraction. The Europa Conference League is a distraction. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, where do we go? Well, we're pretty much forced to go differentials. All of these players that I have in my team, for example, no one's got anything to play for. There are some examples of some slight differences there. So maybe, we could say Wilson maybe wants to get 20 goals in a season. Maybe that could be interesting. We say Kane maybe wants to get 30 goals in a season. Kane may be playing his final game for Spurs. So maybe there's a little bit of a kind of a narrative there that can be spun. This is kind of where we've got to look, really. So in today's stream, we're going to have a little chat. We're going to talk about some potential players that I think are worth having a look at with specific regards to having something to play for the end of the season and who we think is going to do quite well. I can see a few of you guys shouting out some names already. Mattis says Liverpool need to win. Well, if Manchester United at least draw against Chelsea, then that's then out of their hands and that's not going to matter anymore. I do still think that Manchester United in particular would be looking to finish the season strongly. They'll be wanting to, they'll be keeping an eye on that 3rd place spot, which is definitely on the cards now, isn't it? 3rd place for Manchester United could very, very easily happen. So maybe they're going to kind of look to secure that. But we need to look through some of the teams with things to play for. So let's go from the relegated teams first. So we'll start off with Leeds. You know, when we look at some of the numbers from some of these Leeds players, you can see that Rodrigo is standing out currently, most points recently, but I don't think he is actually top for actual kind of hang on, per start for actual, you know, expected points. These numbers are not particularly good. Like, we've got Bamford and Rodrigo. I know some people are looking at them. I guess we throw Rodrigo into the mix, but I'm not really confident going too far out of that. Yeah, the difficulty is with Bamford and Rodrigo, apparently both of those were struggling in that last game against West Ham. Both of them are carrying injuries at the moment. So, you know, maybe, I know we kind of probably like the look of going for some Leeds players, but, you know, it's a difficult one to say whether they're actually going to be available, and if they are available, are they going to be playing at full power? Probably not. Even if they are playing, do we trust them? They haven't been playing too well recently, Leeds, at all. So do we trust them? I don't know. I guess we can throw Rodrigo and Bamford into the mix if they're fit, but I mean, I'm not too happy about that. Wouldn't really be looking to hit any of their defenders, really. So moving up the table, actually, who's next in the table now? Is it Leicester or Everton? It's still Leicester there, isn't it? Okay. So moving up, we've got Leicester players. So there are a couple of Leicester players that I do think are kind of interesting. So Maddison, I think, is interesting. If he starts, obviously dropped that last game, but did get subbed on at half-time. So that's a difficult one. Is he going to be nailed on for this final game? One of the big things, I think, is going to be early team news this game week. And I'm going to actually make a video later on in this game week that kind of goes over what this kind of strategy that I think we need to be kind of using for this final game week is. I'll explain it very simply now, but I'll make some graphics and stuff to try and articulate it a little bit better. But I think going into this final game week, because there's so many players that we do quite like the look of, who could potentially do well, but they're all a little bit, you know, risky whether they're going to play or not. I think we do need to come up with some kind of system where we find players who we would want to buy if they're available. Sort of in a way, making a list of players that we want to bring in. If they start, we bring them in. And also, at the same time, keeping an eye on the players we currently have. And if they are not available, who is the natural replacement for them? So what I'll be doing is I'll be making a kind of a table graphic type thing. I've already conceptualized, but haven't actually made yet. Which basically is going to show, in each position, a couple of players who are cheap, a couple of players who are expensive in each position, and then that can kind of tell you which players you would quite like to go for. And then hopefully, if you find out certain players that you currently own are benched for Game Week 38, you can look at the table and kind of identify, okay, who is a natural swap here? Okay, my expensive forward isn't starting. Let's consult the table. What's expensive forward, you know, is a player that I'd like to bring in for this game week. And if it's like Erling Haaland is benched for Game Week 38, then that means we have a natural Harry Kane to bring in, for example. If we have, I don't know, Kaoru Mitoma is benched or something like that, and we find out maybe Dwight McNeil is starting in the midfield position, for example, we'll say, okay, there is a very obvious, again, very easy transfer to make there, because we look for our cheap midfielder in the cheap midfield section, because our cheap midfielder is not playing. So yeah, I'm going to do something like that, and I think that's probably the way to play it. But first, we do need to identify some players we need to be buying. So yeah, like I say, Maddison I like, Iheanacho I like, Vardy I'm not really massively keen on, to be honest. But Iheanacho, if he starts, he could be okay. I'm going to a little shout out to Harvey Barnes as well. I think he's okay when he starts, but I don't think there's any real guarantee of him actually starting. So yeah, let's go for that. Maddison, Iheanacho, Barnes. Not going to go for any defenders. Again, don't fully trust the Leicester defence. And I'm hoping for some high-scoring games. And I do also think, when we're thinking about trying to get some big, high-scoring players for Game Week 38, we are naturally going to be looking towards the attackers and the defenders with like kind of attacking attributes. You know, your Trent Alexander-Arnolds, your Luke Shaws, those kind of players who can get an attacking return. Trippier, you know, a player who can get an attacking return as well. So we need to look at Everton next. So Dwight McNeil is very, very obviously the best attacker for Everton right now. And I know he did He did play at left back last game, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen in the following game. In fact, even at left back, Dwight McNeil still put up some decent creative numbers in that game. So yeah, maybe not. The FPL scope says Iheanacho subbed at half-time, so surely not. It's difficult to say. I mean, to be fair, Iheanacho is just coming back from an injury, so maybe it was a little bit too soon for him to play the full 90 minutes. However, by the time the weekend rolls around, he's had his 45 minutes to get him back into the flow because he has been injured. He's going to possibly be available to play the full game there. McNeil, by the way, playing at left back because Mykolenko has been injured. We're not sure if Mykolenko is going to be available for Gameweek 38 yet or not. But there is other players who could play at left back. We've kind of seen in the past Godfrey play there. Is Godfrey even available at the moment? I need to brush up on my Everton. I'm not going to lie. I don't really, we've never really had too much of a reason to look up Everton players. I haven't seen Godfrey around in a while, but is he available? No, he's injured as well. Unknown return date, but he can potentially come in at left back. Can Holgate play at left back? I guess technically he could, maybe. I don't know. We're pretty much banking on Mykolenko being back in order for McNeil to be a serious contender. Some people looking at Calvert-Lewin, so let's throw him into the mix as well. Doucouré's been in pretty good form, as has Iwobi. Not too bad. Not great, but not too bad. But, we're putting them kind of in the same kind of brackets as your Rodrigos and your Harvey Barnes, players that are not not doing too well, but still they have a lot to play for. That's kind of what we're looking for right now. So that's the 3 relegation candidates. If we just go through some of these other fixtures of maybe where we can target, it's difficult to say. I mean, we've got Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. Crystal Palace maybe just looking to finish the season strong. Nottingham Forest maybe on the beach a little bit there. So I do think we could maybe have a little look at Eze. I think he's a pretty good pick for the game week. Probably wouldn't go too far outside of him, though, in terms of transfers in. I'm not going to look at Liverpool players because it's already pretty obvious. It's Trent Alexander-Arnold and Salah really there. Unless you fancy a little punt on Bobby Firmino in his final game for Liverpool, maybe, or something like that. But I'm not sure I'm happy to fully recommend that one. But yeah, Eze is looking not too bad. Where else? Where are the other kind of the stories, the narratives? Harry Kane against Leeds. I mean, to be fair, Leeds are just a very poor defence in general. We say, oh yeah, Leeds. They've got so much to play for, but they still can't defend. And we saw that in Game Week 37. So we probably do want to have a good look at Kane. Is Son worth a little look at? I mean, his underlying numbers aren't too bad, really. It would be a real differential punt to go for him. But, he's not been... His numbers are not too bad. I don't know. Maybe there could be something there, potentially. Not really massively convinced. But look, again, let's throw him in the hat. Who else would you guys you think we should kind of throw into the hat? Tech XEO says third or fourth mean nothing. Well, maybe not to you, but I think Manchester United will probably see things a slightly different way. I think Manchester United will be quite keen to finish third. That'll be a strong season for them in the end. I think they'll be happy with that. Omni Shambles reckons Vardy. Oh, I'm not really too sure about that one. Not really too sure about Vardy. He's been a sort of disappointment all season. I'm not even convinced he's going to start. I think if Iheanacho's fully fit and available, he probably starts ahead of Vardy. Not really sure what was going on with the Vardy and Iheanacho situation. I think that was just to kind of get 2 attackers for the counter-attack maybe against Newcastle. But yeah, moving on through these fixtures. So we've done... I mean... Yeah, you guys all own Trent and Salah anyway, don't you? So we don't really need to talk about it. Manchester United, I don't know. Do we want Manchester United players against Fulham? If we haven't already got them, are we going there? Probably not. You keep what you've got and you probably don't buy anything else. Chelsea, Newcastle. Is Callum Wilson to get 20 goals this season, maybe? Is that something that's interesting? Potentially. But again, I think Wilson is a player. If you already have him, you keep him. If you don't already have him, you don't. Chelsea, we're not going to go there. Brentford, I think, are kind of interesting. I think Brian Mbeumo is probably the only guy we think about. Maybe throw in Wissa there as well. in midfield, kind of cheap option. So that's not such a bad shout there, really. He'll be playing kind of in the advanced position. Man City, I mean, yeah, it depends who's starting for Man City, doesn't it? Alvarez, if he starts, I think, is always worth having a look at. Yeah, we're really scraping the barrel right now. Aston Villa versus Brighton. The game might not matter too much to Brighton, but for Aston Villa, do we bring back Ollie Watkins? But Jacob Ramsey's the man in form, so maybe we have a look at him. Yeah, probably Ramsey. I guess you could go for Watkins, but his numbers are seriously down at the moment. Ramsey's numbers are up, and Watkins down. So I don't know. I don't fully know about Watkins. Again, if you have him, keep him. If you don't, probably don't. And that pretty much wraps things up, apart from Arsenal. And the one thing about Arsenal in this fixture against Wolves, I know Arsenal have nothing to play for. I know Wolves have nothing to play for. I do think that Arsenal may want to, be motivated to save face a little bit in this final game, because it has been embarrassing. And Wolves have been truly, truly, truly awful when playing away from home. Truly awful. And we can back that up with some numbers here. So, yeah, I know there's nothing to play for, but, there's only so much we can talk about with nothing to play for, because it's pretty much nobody has anything to play for other than the teams right at the bottom of the table. So we do have to at least consider some other teams. But if we look since, I don't know, let's go since Gameweek 30, expected goals conceded. We do see Wolves mid-table until you switch it to away only. And when we go away only, we see Wolves right at the bottom here. 2.7 expected goals conceded per game when playing away from home. We can expand that, pretty much since the World Cup break. And you still see Wolves right down here next to Leeds. So Wolves away from home. And same with, West Ham, we've probably throw them in there. And Leeds, these are the teams to target when they're playing away from home. And both West Ham and Wolves are playing away from home. So I do think there's something in that, which is why I am tempted to go towards some Leicester players against West Ham. A lot to play for, playing against one of the weaker teams. But yeah, Wolves, they are bad away from home. They are bad away from home. I don't know, guys. I feel like maybe we could sneak in on Arsenal for the final day of the season. Ødegaard, Jesus, Saka is probably as far as I would go. Some people will say Trossard, but I don't really know why to go for Trossard when he's basically the same price as Ødegaard, and Ødegaard is just very obviously better. It would be those three players, Ødegaard, Jesus, Saka. That's probably as far as you go. And I feel like, in terms of the kind of players we'd be looking to bring in this game week, and yeah, we are talking pretty much exclusively about attackers. That's where I feel like we want to go. Let me show you the kind of players. So, this is our final list. And there is not that many, but more importantly, they are all differential. Maybe some of them aren't mega differentials. You've got your likes of Kane and Ødegaard in there, which some people have these players. Some people have Alvarez. Outside of those guys, yeah, these are all real differentials. But we've got them in order of expected points per start. And that is over the past, how many game weeks? 5 game weeks. So expected points per start over the past 5 game weeks. And you can see some players are standing out more than others. So, for example, Maddison, really, really good numbers. He hasn't looked amazing recently, but his numbers have looked really good. And he's playing against West Ham, and he's playing at home, and he's a lot to play for. So straight away, we can see that Maddison looks like a pretty decent pick. I think you guys probably agree with that. But on paper, Maddison looks like a good pick for this game week. Everything considered, all the things we usually like to take into consideration when picking our FPL players, Maddison looks okay. After that, Harry Kane, super, super reliable man. A little bit expensive, but still a player that we might want to have a little looky-loo at. So are we thinking about Kane? I think we are potentially thinking about Harry Kane. for this game week against Leeds. Final game for Spurs potentially. Super reliable FPL asset, targeting 30 goals, playing against Leeds, who despite having a lot to play for, are just a bad defence. I mean, if we look last game week, guys, Leeds, they had everything to play for against West Ham, and they conceded 3 goals to them. Was there a 4th goal disallowed in that game as well? Can't remember now. But yeah, look, I watched the game sort of on and off. I didn't have my full my full concentration, I'm not going to lie, but I will make sure I do rewatch that game by the deadline. But in that game, Leeds, they didn't look good defensively. I know Rice scored a bit of a wonder goal, but they didn't look too good defensively. So you've got the likes of Harry Kane. I think he could get some points here. People in the chat are saying swap Erling Haaland out and bring in Kane. If Erling Haaland isn't starting in Game Week 38, I think that is on. I think that is a move that I think you want to be thinking about, yeah. But if Haaland is starting, you don't bet against him. Unless you just want to take a super mega risk, which is obviously fine as well. It's absolutely fine if you want to take that big risk. We've got Brian and Bumo. Difficult fixture against City on paper, but in reality, what kind of City team are we going to see? So I do think that is definitely worth a conversation. Dwight McNeil, if he's playing in midfield, could be good. Visser, similar situation to Mbumo. I think I would rather go for Mbumo, though. Mbumo on penalties as well. Son, a bit of a differential there. Not too bad numbers. Iheanacho, if he starts, could be okay. Eze, a lot of people are talking about him. He's got a decent fixture against Forest. Numbers slightly below some of these other players. And after that, we've got the likes of Barnes, Odegaard, Ramsey, Alvarez, Jesus, Saka, Bamford, Calvert-Lewin, Decore, Iwobi, and Rodrigo. I think some of these players towards the bottom here, we maybe have to exclude them just on the basis that they are just not really performing very well at the moment. Rodrigo, not fully fit, not putting up great numbers. Iwobi, similar situation. Decore, similar situation. Calvert-Lewin, similar situation. And Bamford, even if he does put up good numbers, we know that his finishing is not all there. And maybe some of these underlying numbers have been inflated by the penalty miss as well. The penalty that he had, which he did obviously miss there as well. Someone in the chat said Mitrovic. Yeah, he's playing against Man United. I'm not super keen about that. Like, Man United are kind of performing defensively recently, aren't they? Someone says add Trossard. If I added Trossard, he would be literally bang at the bottom of this list. So yeah, that maybe tells you something that you maybe need to know. Yeah, I wouldn't be going for Trossard when there's Odegaard there at a pretty similar price. I mean, if you really want to, fine. But this is, I think, not definitive, but it's a pretty close list to what we kind of be looking at. In terms of who's actually been getting points recently rather than expected points, Kane at the top, Wissa there as well, 7.67 points per start, and Bumo up there, 7 points per start. McNeil, 6.33. Odegaard 6.33, Eze 6.17. So yeah, similar players at the top maybe. Maddison's massively dropped off here because Maddison is massively underperforming at the moment. Is that a sign that things are going to get better, or is it a sign that he's just in very, very poor form at the moment? I don't know. I'll leave that to you guys. But yeah, these are the kind of differentials I think we should be possibly bringing in. And looking at my team, for example, I mean, I've got 4 million in the bank. Made sure I did that, so I had a few options to go for. Martinelli, I would like to take out ideally. I'm not willing to take more than a -4 personally for this game week because it's going to be such a messy game week that I don't know where the points are going to be coming from, and I feel like you could do more damage than good unless you are desperately chasing. But even when you talk about -8s, you can't make that back over several game weeks. You've got one game week to make back each -4 that you take. I don't know, but I'd be willing to take just the one -4 if it meant making my team look a lot better, and if there's a lot of players like benched or rotated in that final game week, which very much could happen. So, for me, Martinelli seems a really obvious player to take out because he is injured. Trippier and Rashford, obviously, we're expecting them to be fine for the final game week, so I'm not too worried about their Doritos of death, but Martinelli will not be available for Game Week 38. After that, it's kind of difficult. I mean, I could take out Wilson, I can take out Alvarez. If either of Alvarez or Wilson are benched, I'll probably take out one of them. If Erling Haaland is benched, I'd probably take out him. And I feel like for me and my team, I probably play Rashford, Fernandes, play whatever replacement midfielder I come up with, and play one of McAllister and Mitoma, hoping one of them will start in Gameweek 38. I think one of them should start in 38 at least. So whichever one starts, I'll go with them, or if they both start, possibly end up on McAllister, to be honest. We've also got a forward to remove. So that's kind of, there's a few options for me. So I can go two ways, really. I can either go take out Wilson, and I basically have a choice. I can go for Salah and then get a 4.5 million forward. Can't quite afford Ferguson, even if I had the slot available. It's not really 4.5 million forwards to go for, to be honest. But just having a very brief look, unless like Sims plays at Everton, but I can't really see that happening, to be honest. Yeah, there's Sims there. Yeah, no one else is really gonna play. Greenwood, could he play? I guess technically he could, but I wouldn't want to be starting him really. So yeah, that's one option for me, to take out Wilson and replace Martinelli with Salah. That's probably the safe thing for me to do. But it means taking a -4 for one player and only improving my team by one slot. So, you know, I don't have to do that. I could also maybe take out Wilson and put in Kane there instead. Which would leave me, I think, like 6.2. So that pretty much gives me any midfielder I like. I could maybe go for Eze in there if he looks good to go. That's a pretty decent -4, I think, because I've brought in two players that I quite like for the game week. I can also do it with Alvarez here with Kane, but it leaves me with less money. But that does leave me just about enough, if I was to do that, to go for McNeil. So I can maybe do that. Kane and McNeil in for Alvarez and Martinelli. Something like that would work for me. Obviously, if we found out Erling Haaland isn't starting, Haaland to Kane, really, really obvious move. But you could also do, well, for me personally, I could do Salah in there, and it leaves me with a decent amount of money to buy a new forward. Kind of, you know, Iheanacho is a forward I kind of like the look of. Looking through these forwards here, we've got Mbumo maybe. So, yeah, maybe I could do Salah and Mbumo, something like that. Would leave me still a lot of money in the bank, to be fair. But, yeah, that's the only way I can get in Mbumo, maybe doing it something like that. Yeah, there's a few different options for me. It's quite difficult to say exactly which one to go for right now, which, again, brings me back to my thing of I need to figure out, basically, cheap, medium and expensive forwards and midfielders, essentially. And then on the day, just before deadline, we'll have a little panic. We'll scramble through our list and work out who the players to remove are. Martinelli is going to be a remove for me for sure. And then I need to figure out, basically, if who's starting out of Haaland, Alvarez and Wilson. Like, you would expect that at least one of Haaland and Alvarez is starting. Maybe both, but not definitely both. You hope Wilson starts, but it's definitely not a guarantee in that final day of the season with top 4 secured for Newcastle. So I need to figure it out. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I mean, yeah, the only difficulty is if I'm taking out Alvarez and Martinelli, that doesn't leave me with too much money. It would mean I can't go for Salah anymore. I wouldn't be able to afford Salah anymore at that point, because it would leave me too little in the bank, 3.5. So that would write off Salah. It would still allow me to get Kane, though. So maybe, you know, if Alvarez isn't playing, it means I'm going to go for Kane and probably McNeil, maybe Wissa. If Haaland isn't playing, I'd probably go for Salah. Yeah. There's some different options, but I'm thinking about it already. We just need to get some kind of structure of how we're going to work out who to bring in and who not to bring in. But yeah, those are the kind of players, guys, that I would be thinking about bringing in. Next up, I'm going to look at the predicted points. But whilst I'm doing that, if you guys wouldn't mind dropping a like on the stream/video, I would massively appreciate that. One click and it really helps out the channel so much, believe me. But also, please do get some questions in the chat. We'll finish off the stream after I've had a look at some of the predicted points. We'll answer some questions. So throw the questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll find some interesting ones that may apply to a few people. So let's first of all have a look at these predicted points. So Gameweek 38. This is on the Fantasy Football Hub points prediction algorithm thingamajiggy. We have got a young Mr. Harry Kane, top. Excuse me. Hay fever season. Harry Kane, 8.3 predicted points against Leeds. That puts him at number 1. He is the highest predicted points for Game Week 38. Followed by Salah, 7.6 predicted points there. No surprise to see Salah up that high. I mean, some of you guys may even say Salah should be higher than that. I mean, let's have a look at some of Salah's numbers. I know his non-penalty XG has not been as good as it has been in the past, but he's still creating, right? His expected points let's just go per start. I think that's fair. 7.55 in general, which is very, very decent. You know, those are some good numbers. But if we do take away penalties, it does drop a little bit because we have only got 0.47 expected goals per game non-penalty. But you never know when you're going to get a penalty with players like Liverpool. That's since Game Week 30, by the way, guys. So yeah, it's still not bad, but you know, when you look at Harry Kane, non-penalty XG, it's actually slightly worse, 0.4. Oh yeah, to be fair, all right, yeah, fine. Harry Kane, slightly well. Okay, all right. This is an interesting question then. Who is doing well on non-penalty XG? Because maybe, you know, I thought Salah, you know, at 0.4 something was, you know, maybe not so good. So who is better? Not really many people. If we hide some of the low minutes players, especially Erling Haaland, Rashford, and Wilson are the only people beating Salah for non-penalty XG over the recent game weeks. Like, what about if we go slightly tighter there? Okay, yeah, if we bring it to the last 5 game weeks, it does change things a little bit. Salah does drop off a little bit here. I can't remember what the game was where Liverpool changed their system, so I don't know. Maybe there's something in that. There's 0.33. Expected goals per game is non-penalty. It's not ideal for a player of his price. If he's easy to get to, if you already have him, then absolutely keep him. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. But there may be potential to find a differential here, right? Maybe. Not definitely, but maybe. Only if you don't have Salah already, I guess. But yeah, like the likes of Mbumo here, it's not looking too bad, is it? Brian Mbumo. It's not looking too bad at all. Hey, maybe there's something in that. Harry Kane, of course, moving above Salah for non-penalty XG when you're looking at the past 5 game weeks. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe the points prediction tool is sort of taking that into consideration. The fact that the Kane's underlying numbers on goals are slightly better, but then Salah gets more points for goals and he gets assists as well. I guess Kane gets assists as well, but yeah, it's the fixture as well, I guess. The fixture is mad. Linus K, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. Other than Trent and Salah, which other Liverpool players are nailed? Van Dijk. I'm guessing you were looking for attackers. I can't really tell you. I mean, Gakpo typically is nailed, but at the same time, you know, this is Firmino's final game of the season. It's not like Liverpool have a whole bunch to play for in this game. So, well, we're assuming that Manchester United, you know, at least get a draw against Chelsea, which I think we could probably expect. But hey, maybe that changes things in a bit, which would make Salah essential, really, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's really difficult to say. When we're looking through the predicted points, we have to scroll a little bit before we get to Gakpo. After that, it's Robertson. I'm not really too keen on Robertson as a transfer in. Gakpo's the next best option, I think, in terms of those Liverpool attackers after Salah, really. But yeah, it's too difficult to say, isn't it? It's too difficult to say. Yeah, I'd be interested to see the 100 experts. Let's see what the 100 experts are saying on Liverpool attackers, who they're kind of feeling bringing in. But yeah, okay, after Salah, we've got Fernandes, the consistent underperformer with amazing underlying numbers. Underlying numbers only take you so far. Heung-min Son up here as well. Potential differential there. Saka is in the mix. Jesus is in the mix. Trent is in the mix, of course. Rashford, if he starts, hopefully he will. This is interesting. 5.6 predicted points, but that assumes 68 minutes played. So maybe if Rashford plays, 80 to 90 minutes, his predicted points probably goes up to over 6, you would say, and maybe puts him above Saka and Jesus. So Rashford maybe worth a shout there. Eze is up there as well, another player on pretty good points there. Maddison, similar situation. Ødegaard. Solanke's a bit of a weird one. Not sure I will be going for Solanke personally, but then we've got the likes of Cody Gakpo. So yeah, in terms of the players we were talking about as potential transfers in that not a lot of us own, it's Kane, Son, Saka, Jesus, Eze, Maddison, Ødegaard, really leading the lines of the list, I suppose, at the moment. But yeah, there you go. There's some predicted points for you. Let's have a look at some questions in the chat. We said we'd have a look at that. Right. So, Giandre says, do you think Bailey is a good enabler? Expect him to start? I don't know. He could start. He could not start. Even when he does start, his numbers are not that good. I would rather go for Jacob Ramsey. Unless you just really desperately need the money and you really desperately need to downgrade one of your players, I guess we could do that. Carl says, well, we all know you're going to buy Salah since he's a must-buy, but it'll likely go up in price. So working out how you're going to do it, or is it tough? Depends. It really just depends which players. I'm not making a single transfer until the last minute this game week, and I would advise all of you guys to do the same. I'm going to go real as last minute as I can, get as much information as I possibly can, and then just from there work out what's possible and what's not possible. If Liverpool are still in the mix for top 4, then I will be buying Salah. He would be an absolute must buy. If not, then I may be more tempted, and depending on which players are starting and which players aren't starting that I currently own and who I'm thinking about buying, that may tempt me to go a little bit differential, which I'm fine with. I think Kane can potentially cover Salah's points there. I mean, we're not trying to cover teams and players. We're trying to cover FPL points. If Salah gets, 15 points in game week 38, it doesn't matter if you didn't buy Salah, as long as you bought someone else who got 15 points or more, which could be Kane, which could be Fernandes, which could be Son. Less likely to be those players, but if you think that there's a good chance of that, then why not roll the dice, particularly if saving the money by not going for Salah allows you to make some other moves that you quite like. For me to get Salah, I'm either taking a -4 to only improve my team by one player, which would be Salah, or I'm removing Erling Haaland, which would allow me to improve my team with 2 players with that -4, but it will fully depend on Erling Haaland not playing in that game week. But that would tempt me to move to Salah and Iheanacho maybe, but probably Mbeumo at this point. Kind of like the look of that one. But there's options. There's options. Kyle says also, would you remove Fernandes to buy Salah? Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. But Fernandes, when you look through the players who are, have fixtures that we kind of don't mind, because there's nothing we love in Game Week 38. If there's anything we don't mind in Game Week 38, Bruno Fernandes against Fulham is probably one of those. I don't mind Bruno Fernandes against Fulham. Quite like it. Wouldn't mind having him in that game. I'd ideally not like to lose him. Ideally, I would like to remove players that I don't want and replace them with players I do want. I think that's the aim of the game in FPL in general, isn't it? Players I don't want is Martinelli and pretty much anyone who isn't starting. So Martinelli gets removed from my team immediately, and then one of my forwards, whichever one isn't starting. If they're all starting, then I've got some decisions to make, I guess. But in that case, maybe I'll just go Martinelli to Eze, or Martinelli to Maddison, or something like that. That's also an option. No -4s taken there. There's plenty of options. Okay, so the FPL scope says Kanate pretty nailed and cheap if you need a defender. Not really too keen on that one. It seems like a bit of a pretty boring transfer to make for the final game of the season. We want a big player. Jandre says DCL punt, and it's exactly that, a punt. If you want to go there, fine, but I'm not touching him personally. It doesn't seem to be fully fit and available. He got substituted off last game, didn't he? Am I getting that right? Calvert-Lewin substituted off last game. Has he got a flag next to him? Yeah, he does. Yeah, 45 minutes played last game. Hamstring injury, 75% chance of playing. So I don't know. I think that pretty much writes him off for me. Even when he is playing, his numbers aren't, they're not great, really. A -8 is tempting for me. Don't know what's the biggest hit you take. The biggest hit I take is -4 at this point. Emil says, would you take Haaland to Alvarez? I would only take out Haaland if we get news that he's not starting. That's the only reason I would remove him. Otherwise, you're entering chaos mode. Scott says, is Trent a priority buy? He's pretty much up there. He is up there, one of the priority buys. Brian says Eze will be in a lot of teams come deadline. Maybe. I don't think he's going to be anywhere above sort of 30% owned. I don't think in the kind of top 100, 200k anyway. Even in the top million. Kange says Spurs triple up. Kane, Son, Richarlison. I don't know about that one. I wouldn't be going for Richarlison full stop. I mean, Kane and Son, I don't mind as differentials. I don't know if I'd be willing to go for both of them, though. Luke says, Awoniyi, Forest against Palace last game of the season, no pressure. That is one way of looking at it, I guess. But at the same time, we're talking about a Crystal Palace team that are pretty decent. I feel like Nottingham Forest could be on the beach at this point. Could see some rotation from Nottingham Forest. We know they've got a big squad. Probably would like to have a look at some of those players. And even if the main guys are starting, Awoniyi, Gibbs White, even if they're starting the game, could they get early substitutions? Definitely a possibility. Definitely a possibility. Frederick says, I'm free hitting. Well, enjoy, my friend. Enjoy. Yeah, it's not too bad. Zion says, would you look at Paqueta? He's been exceptional recently and looks so good on the eye. Yeah, I'm not sure if his numbers are necessarily translating to FPL points, but I mean, we can... I don't know. West Ham away from home have been pretty bad. Yeah, are Paqueta's underlying numbers that good? I don't think they're amazing. No, they're not really. I mean, they're okay, but they're not great. Like, it's fine, but yeah, I don't know if I'm really feeling that one. I mean, I know people want to go for differentials, but if we are going to go there, I feel like we do need to go for players. We have like strong reasons to pick players, Aston Villa playing for anything? Kind of, but not really. Luke says slim pickings. It really is slim pickings. We are like, every pick we're thinking about buying this game week. And this is a problem I've been having all weekend when I've been trying to think about how to tackle Gameweek 38. It is a case of building a narrative around a player and convincing yourself that they're a good pick, because there is no good picks, really. It's going to be... I don't know. It's going to be one of those game weeks where there'll be like a few players that score amazing points. You just got to be lucky enough to happen to pick them. You could pretty much pick like player names out of a hat for Game Week 38 to decide who's going to do well and who isn't, with the exception of, the obvious ones: Kane, Salah, Trent, whatever Man City forward is starting out of Alvarez and Haaland. They're pretty good picks there. Maybe some of the Manchester United guys are okay, but they've not been scoring a huge amount of goals recently. Yeah, it's going to be outside of the really obvious players. It is going to be picking names out of a hat, essentially. Really, really random, Well, that's the way it seems. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully by the end of the week we'll try and get a little bit of a clearer idea of who is a good pick and who is a bad pick. But right now, crazy. Fardeen says, what choices are there to just defend rank, because differentials are kind of poor this game week? If you just want to defend your rank, then we're essentially about just picking the players that everyone else has. So the best way of looking at this is probably going on live FPL. If I just put in my thingy in here. So this is I know you guys probably can't see this great at the moment, but it's going to give me an idea of who are the obvious players. So on the left, we have my players. On the right, we have players that are heavily owned that I don't have. Or that I didn't start, at least. So you can kind of get an idea of, in the top 100k, which is my current rank bracket, what players are heavily owned, and then you just buy them, I guess. So, for example, we've got, where is it? So up here we can see on the green side, 46 0.8% people own Wilson, so if you don't have him, maybe you want to go for him. But really want to, if you want to just protect rank, go for the players that a lot of people own, and that's Trent, Shaw, Estupinian, anyone over 50% really. Mitoma, McAllister, Fernandez, Rashford, Erling Haaland there. Trippier will have high ownership this game week as well. Over here, we've got Salah, maybe Isaac, maybe Mahrez. Just these players that are high owned. Like any player that is a threat to my rank and players that I have right now. These are the kind of players. Like I would go on live FPL and just have a look at main threats to your rank here on this part, and then you can kind of see what players do you not have currently that can do damage to you. And right now, Salah's really been the player doing damage to me recently. So if I was just trying to protect rank, I would just buy Salah. Trippier I have on my bench, so he kind of half counts. Other players that are kind of dangerous to my rank, you've got likes of Mahrez and Isaac there, pretty highly owned in the top 100k. So maybe I'd think about buying those players if I was just trying to protect rank. Of course, the likes of Isaac and Mahrez and even Wilson, they're not even absolutely nailed on. So maybe we don't look at that one. Dan, in your opinion, do you think Johnson starts or will Palace rotate keepers? In my opinion, Johnson starts, but I don't think there's any guarantee of that. Dara says Dwight McNeil in for Mitoma is an easy move. It's not such an easy move if Mikalenko's still out though, which is the issue. Luke says Gakpo flying under the radar. Yeah, as long as he starts though. Zorion says, make a list, pick the worst option and you'll score big. Yeah, sometimes the worst option scores the most points, right? Inter says, any chances to know all the squads before the deadline? Fingers crossed, hopefully. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully we'll get a lot of early team news. And we're expecting a bit of a manic one. Of course, I would, make sure you are in a deadline stream of someone, whether that's my deadline stream or, Andy Let's Talk FPL's deadline stream or FPL Raptors deadline stream, because all of us will be dropping the early team news as soon as we find it out. Keep an eye on Twitter as well. That's always a good place to find early team news, as long as you're following the right people and you're only really accept early team news from trusted accounts. If they've got less than 10,000 followers, then I just would completely leave it. In fact, if they've got under 50, 60, 70,000 followers, I would probably ignore all early team news, because it's going to be so essential that we get it right, that only the most trustworthy people who have built up a bit of a reputation and a bit of an audience for being accurate at getting early team news, those would be the only people I'd be trusting really. But yeah, that's on Twitter. And hopefully we get some early team news, It's going to be, for me personally, I think the early team news is going to be everything for making those transfers, really. It's going to define everything that I do. What I want to do right now throughout the week is identify the best players to bring in and then go reactive. Once we've got a list of players that look good to buy, which I'm going to be talking about in videos for the rest of the week. When we've got that list, when we get the team news, we can start ticking off, okay, this player works. I can bring in this player. This player that I've got right now isn't starting. I can take them out for this player who is starting, etc., and kind of work it like that. Brian says the trolls will be out in full force. They certainly will, which is why, we've got to be really, really particular of who we are trusting for early team news in Game Week 38. Really particular. We're going to have to be snobbish. We are going to have to be snobbish. Yeah. Jandry says, do we get early team news from all teams or just the usuals? I think we'll probably get most teams. I mean, at this point, there's leakers from all manners of life, So there we go. Luke says, I rate the climb this season, Dan. You came from 1 million in the world very late on to top 30k is easy. I don't know if I'll get top 30k at this point. But look, top 50k was the target. Hopefully I do that. Top 10k in the second chance league was also a target. I think both of those targets are very easily achievable now. Just need a reasonably strong Game Week 38. Game Week 37 isn't done yet. We could still do some damage in this game week, which is pretty good, pretty fun, pretty nice. So yeah, that's still a possibility. But yeah, top 1 million. We were like 1.8 million. 1.8 million at the World Cup break. That was crazy. Was not good at that point. But yeah, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up around about now. We've done an hour. A couple more quick questions that I've just seen come in. So Elliot says, would you do Trippier to Trent tonight to avoid being priced out? No, I would not be making any transfers today. I guess if you're saying that you're going to be priced out, I genuinely think I would rather take a -4 and make 2 transfers later on in the week. I mean, for example, Elliot, if you want to make 1 transfer and that is Trippier to Trent, and you can't do that after today, okay, that's one thing. Maybe you're priced out. But if we get to the deadline and you find out you've got, you know, for example, Callum Wilson in your team, and you find out Callum Wilson isn't starting, well, then you're suddenly going to want to bring out Wilson, right? Then, at that point, you can say, okay, now I can make 2 transfers. I can downgrade Wilson to Brian and Mbumo, for example, and now I can afford to upgrade Trippier to Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I think there is going to be opportunities to make more transfers later, even if you would be priced out now. But I do still think information would be key. I would be more willing to take a -4 at deadline to make 2 good transfers than going early today and potentially missing out on some key information before deadline. Phil Wright says, 40 points clear, enough to win my mini league. It looks good, but never say never. I'll be looking at your rivals to see what they've got. And I think we'll leave it there. But I do appreciate you guys joining me for a strategy stream. We've identified some differentials, which is what we kind of aimed to do in this stream. So we've achieved that target. We are going to have to narrow these down as time goes on throughout the week. Hopefully we are going to be able to do that. And by the time we get to the Gameweek 38 deadline, we are going to be able to, and this is my hope for videos this week, we're all collectively going to be able to sit down and say, all right, I know what players I'm willing to remove from my team. I know what players I would quite like to bring into my team. We've got a list here. Let's see what the early team news is and react quick. I've got my list. Use those players, replace them, react, quick, done. Boom. Because there's not going to be much time before deadline to make those quick transfers. And there's always the chance of the servers crashing as well. That would be dramatic. But yeah, leaving it there. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, that would be really, really appreciated. Don't forget, tier list video already went up today. And I also did a kind of a best possible team video for Gameweek 38. That was uploaded yesterday. So do go make sure you check that one out as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to do buy, sell, keep, avoid tomorrow or wait another day. I think I might wait another day, but I might do buy, sell, keep, avoid tomorrow. It will be tomorrow or the next day, but there'll be content every day regardless. But aside from that, guys, thank you. Do appreciate you joining me today. And yeah, I will see you on the next video, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.